What is happening, baby? Boy, I'm not gonna lie to you. It feels so damn good to be here today. It's just like I said in my running back video. If you didn't see last week's video about the running back rankings, make sure you check that out. Today we're gonna be talking about the wide receiver rankings. But damn, this feels so good, man. It's Thursday night. I'm sitting here watching Thursday Night Football. I got some trout in the smoker. I'm smoking some trout. And I got to be honest, making the top 10 wide receivers and the top 20 wide receiver rankings was a lot easier than the running backs that we did last week. So today we're going to be talking about them top 10 wide receivers. I'm smoking the trout, and honestly, they were so easy. We're going to smoke right on through these wide receiver rankings as well. So make sure you lock in, get ready, and let's get started on all of it. Before we get started, of course, as always, I'd like to introduce you to myself, your host, Dallas Clark, also known as Indo as my Indo, and we are back here feeling great on the Fantasy Football Huddle, presented by the Huddle Chat Sports show. Now, I do want to let everybody know, of course, if you haven't seen me on Twitter or on Facebook talking about it, coming up August 15th, Mondays and Fridays, you're going to see me over on the Rick T platform delivering the same high quality and high caliber fantasy football advice that you're going to be getting. They'll be short videos, but they will be live episodes where you can ask fantasy football questions and everything like that, live watching your boy, give my rankings, give my lessons that I learned, my stardoms and situms that week, things like that. So make sure you check us out Monday and Friday on the Rick T platform, as well as our Sunday check-in. There's a lot of things going on the Rick T platform, so just check out that Rick T platform social media. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you throw some D's on that subscribe button. Turn it from the subscribe to the subscribed. Hit the like button if you don't hate the video. It helps me out way more than you even realize. But let's get kicked off on these top 10 wide receivers. And before we start, as always, I invite you, if you do, to smoke them if you got them. Let's get it started. Let's huddle up and let's get right into the news. Now, kicking off my wide receiver rankings, honestly, especially the early wide receiver rankings, like I said, they're extremely early. We're going to smoke right through these. So make sure you got your notepads out and you ready to go, because I'm locked, loaded, and ready to explode, baby. Let's get it cracked off. So number one, obviously, we're going Cooper Kupp. There's really not much that needs to be said about Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles. You could even take him as the number one overall pick in your draft. I'm not a big fan of going that strategy. It just depends on what pick that I get is where I'm going. I let the wind take me. But Cooper Kupp, there's no argument that can be made for him to not be wide receiver one and him to not potentially be player number one in your fantasy football draft. I mean, unless you're mentally unstable and mentally unfit to be even drafting a fantasy football team in the first place, there's really no question about Cooper Kupp being the number one wide receiver. Number two and number three, you could honestly, I don't feel like, I'm not going to quibble over which one is going to put up a couple more points than the other one overall throughout the season. 2 and 3 is fairly, I'm not going to argue with you where you put 2 and 3. Me personally, I got Justin Jefferson at my number 2 spot. He's been extremely consistent over the entirety of his career. Adam Thielen is coming out on the back half of his career and the back end of his career, and we may start actually seeing him regress. He's been, like I said, Justin Jefferson's been wildly explosive and wildly consistent. He really reminds you of what Stefon Diggs was early in his career in Minnesota. They found a true replacement for Stefon Diggs in Justin Jefferson, and it's just fun to have him on your team. He hasn't required to have elite quarterback play or even good quarterback play for the entirety of his career. He's just one of those players that's extremely talented and extremely explosive. Jamar Chase, you could say Jamar Chase, my number 3 pick, that his ceiling is a little bit higher than Justin Jefferson. Just because last season was his rookie season. We've only seen that 1 year. We've seen what we can from Justin Jefferson. So, his ceiling may kind of be set already in stone. But Jamar Chase, you might think his ceiling is a little bit higher. He did amazing things last year for fantasy. You look at what he did with Joe Burrow. Honestly, I'm going to take the lashings. I doubted him going into the year because of the reports coming in training camp that he was struggling with catching the ball and stuff like that. So he definitely made me eat my own words. Jamar Chase, he's my number 3 pick this season. Like I said, I'm not going to quibble over 2 and 3. If you have them flip-flopped, it's really not that big of a deal. You can come back at the end of the season and tell me if there was more that needs to be added on to the whole argument there. But number 4, I'm a little bit higher on this man than everybody else. I'm going to go on Stefon Diggs. Personally, I find it hard to not put Stefon Diggs in the top 3 wide receivers, to be honest with you. He's got 160 targets every year that he's been in Buffalo. And you look at what he's been extremely consistent. Impatient fantasy owners, like I've talked about before, if you didn't see the free agency recap that we did a few weeks back, I'll drop a link in the description for you. The wide receiver landscape changed so drastically this season. Stefon Diggs is one that stayed home, but the wide receiver landscape changed so drastically over this season, including Emmanuel Sanders leaving Buffalo and Cole Beasley leaving Buffalo as well, and Stefon Diggs having even less competition for targets. At 160 targets in each season, he may have started slow last year, but he finished as, I believe, wide receiver 7. He finished as a top 12 wide receiver last year. His floor is so sturdy. You're not really worried about his floor. Like I said, he had a couple of slow weeks early on in the year last year, but completely exploded. Like we know Stefon Diggs to do so. Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley are out of the picture, so he has less competition for targets. I mean, you can go on all day, and especially considering the fact that Josh Allen is probably the best quarterback in the league right now, at least a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. So he's got that elite quarterback play that Justin Jefferson doesn't have, or what he didn't have early on in his career. So I think Stefon Diggs definitely at that number 4 spot fits there perfectly. Now moving on to number 5, I've got Devonta Adams. And Devonta Adams moving to Las Vegas, he's not somebody that you should fade whatsoever. Devonta Adams is going to be Devonta Adams this year and should easily finish inside the top 5 wide receivers, which is why he's in that 5 spot. The wide receiver landscape, like I said, went nuts this year. If you haven't checked out that free agency list or free agency recap that I did, check it out. It's in the description. But the wide receiver landscape going crazy was started off and really kind of premiered by Devonta Adams' trade to Las Vegas. Now, he is taking a downgrade a little bit in quarterback, but you're not looking at a downgrade in offense. The Las Vegas Raiders offense is way better than the Green Bay Packers offense. And you look at what the Las Vegas Raiders did last season, they ranked 4th in passing rate, and Derek Carr, as a matter of fact, threw over 100 more passes than Aaron Rodgers. The fact of the matter is, they're in Las Vegas. They're in a more competitive division, so there's going to be a lot of scoring opportunity and a lot of shootout games for Devonta Adams to be in. And those are the players that you want those are the games that you want your players in, is those shootout games. It's nice playing those crappy teams like the Jets or the Texans, but those don't really count for a ton of points scored. Those shootout games is really where you want your key players in your roster to be playing in those games, and you're going to find Devonta Adams in quite a bit of those games this season, and you're also looking at him no longer being the focal point of his team's offensive passing game. He has other targets around him in Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, a good running game out of Josh Jacobs, so he's going to be able to kind of work a little bit more and be a little bit more free this season. I think Hunter Renfrow actually takes an upgrade with Devonta Adams coming into town, but Devonta Adams fits perfectly in that top 5 spot and will easily be a top 5 wide receiver this year. You also look at the fact that him and Derek Carr played together in Fresno State, so they already have that chemistry. And you've already heard the comparisons of Derek Carr to Aaron Rodgers and how their games are so similar. So I'm actually excited to see what Devonta Adams can do in Las Vegas, and I hope he does even better than he ever did in Green Bay. Now, before we move on to that number 5, of course, I'd like to bring out some of my creative and most special friends over at Dank Life brand clothing. My girl Knowledge over there, she is making me some brand new logos. That she's a part of the logos that you see here. She's the creative mind that put these all together, and she's also coming out with some brand new The Huddle Chat Sports Show merchandise that'll be coming here for you to be able to purchase very soon. And you can always hit her up and get your own clothing made. See what Dank Life is about. It's an absolutely amazing product. She puts her heart and soul into all of the things that she makes, and I'm excited to debut the Huddle Chat Sports Show merchandise coming around the corner. Thank you so much, Knowledge, for all the hard work that you've been doing. Make sure y'all check out Dank Life clothing brand. Now, moving back on into those top 10 rankings, we're going on into the back half of the top 10 rankings, and CeeDee Lamb is going to be my number 6 wide receiver. Personally, CeeDee Lamb is probably my favorite to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football this season. I think CeeDee Lamb, he's a must-draft wide receiver. You look at the fact that Amari Cooper is out of town. Michael Gallup took a late season ACL tear, so he may not be available until maybe December. CeeDee Lamb is the number one option in the Dallas Cowboys offense, the highest scoring offense last season. CeeDee Lamb had 80 catches for over 1,100 yards this year, last year, and he's projected for 1,200 yards this year. CeeDee Lamb is an absolute stud, and he's definitely a must-draft wide receiver and fits perfectly in there at that number 6 spot, and you can even rank him higher if you feel so inclined. Moving on to number 7 is another wide receiver that you really need not fade, is going to be Michael Evans out in Tampa Bay. He's always been a stud. He's having a Hall of Fame career, and that was before Tom Brady came. Now he's tied to the greatest quarterback of all time. Oh, god damn, I hate saying that. But he's tied to the greatest quarterback of all time, similar to what CeeDee Lamb has with Michael Gallup. Chris Godwin took a very late ACL tear last season. I believe 4 weeks left in the season. He took the ACL tear, waited 2 weeks to actually sit down and conversate about having that surgery. Did not have his surgery until the first week of January. It takes a minimum of 9 months to recover from an ACL tear, and typically it takes about 12 months to properly recover as a wide receiver, as an explosive player, and to come out mentally okay from that ACL tear. So you may not see Chris Godwin until December. If everything goes absolutely perfect for him, he could be on the field for week 1, but you're most likely not going to see Chris Godwin until December, leaving Mike Evans to have less competition for catches than he probably has had in his entire career. And you look at the fact that, of course, that Tampa Bay offense is extremely high scoring. They had a 66.6% pass rate last season, which led the NFL. In the 4 games that Chris Godwin missed last year, Mike Evans averaged 10 targets per game, 93 yards per game. He scored 5 touchdowns over that span and averaged 20 fantasy points per game during that time. Tampa Bay had the most pass attempts in the NFL last season. They had the highest pass rate in the NFL last season, and they had the second highest scoring total per game last year. Mike Evans, everything around him screams fantasy football explosion, and Mike Evans is definitely somebody that I'm definitely not upset plugging into my roster. Now, moving on in to number 8, we're going on Tyreek Hill in Miami. I'm not extremely big on Tyreek Hill coming from Miami, but I feel like it's disrespectful to put him outside of the top 10. I feel like the ceiling that he had with Patrick Mahomes was the ceiling of what we're going to see Tyreek Hill in his NFL career. But I don't think he's going to be able to reach that ceiling with Tua Tagovailoa. So his ceiling is going to be a little bit lower, but his floor is about the same. I see Tyreek Hill getting used a lot like Deebo Samuel was in San Francisco last season, very close to the line of scrimmage, a lot of screen pass attempts. And if you look at the fact that if Tyreek Hill and Tua Tagovailoa can connect on one deep ball in the entire game, Tyreek Hill is going to have an explosive fantasy football performance. I feel like his ceiling may not be the same, but his floor still remains the same floor that the Cheetah has always had. I definitely think, like I said, he's going to have a downgrade with Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback, but you're not going to see him really bust in fantasy football this year. I definitely see him as a low-end wide receiver 1, which is why he fits perfectly at that number 8 spot. Now, speaking of Deebo Samuel, that's going to be my number 9 pick for you. He's a lot tougher to evaluate this season. His new contract and everything makes you a little bit more comfortable in signing Deebo Samuel, because there was a lot of talk about him potentially getting traded, him not liking the way he was being used in that offense. But that new contract, that increase in his salary, that just puts a smile on his face and your face as a fantasy football owner, a lot more comfortable in owning him. But like we were talking about when we were speaking on Tyreek Hill, he saw the 3rd highest screen pass rate in the entire season last year. He was used very close to the line of scrimmage, but the crazy fact about how he was used is he also still had the highest yards after catch per reception last year, as well as the highest yards per reception last year, even though the majority of his passes come close to the line of scrimmage. He's one of those playmakers that as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, you're liable to see fantasy football explosion. So I'm very comfortable taking Deebo Samuel here right at that 9 spot. The only problem that I have with Deebo Samuel, the only downfall that he has, is that San Francisco offense is weird as hell. The way they run the ball, how they use their players, the fact that Trey Lance now is taking over at quarterback, you might see a little bit more rushing attempts coming from San Francisco, so the volume may take an extreme dip for Deebo Samuel, but the athleticism and just the football IQ that he has makes Deebo Samuel one of the most elite wide receivers in fantasy football and in football going into 2022, so I'm definitely coming comfortable into my draft taking Deebo Samuel at my 9th wide receiver total. Now, finishing off the cap on this iceberg. Number 10 is a player that I'm higher on than most people. I'm going A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, I'm bigger on him than the consensus is. But at the end of the day, he's a certified alpha wide receiver, and you've seen what he's been able to do throughout his entire career. And it's not like he's leaving an elite quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is a bottom 10 starting quarterback in the NFL. It's the fact that A.J. Brown is now moving to an offense that actually can move and focus without him and Derrick Henry being the two focal points. They have a good running game with Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell. They have another good wide receiver in Devonta Smith. They got Dallas Goedert at the tight end position. Fact of the matter is, out in Philly, you're getting a much better offense than you got in Tennessee. So you're going to see him being able to work a lot more. And like I said, he's that certified alpha wide receiver. You've seen what he's done with average quarterback play throughout his entire career. And fact of the matter, Jalen Hurts might actually be an upgrade for A.J. Brown at quarterback. And I don't really think many people are talking about that fact. So personally, I'm sliding A.J. Brown into that 10 spot. I believe he's going to stay what he's been his entire career, which is a low-end wide receiver one with extreme upside. And the ceiling is higher in Philadelphia. It's always sunny in Philadelphia, as they like to say. So I see A.J. Brown having a better year than he's had in his entire career coming down to Philadelphia working with Jalen Hurts. But that's going to cap off my top 10 wide receivers going into fantasy football. Either tomorrow or early next week, you're going to see the next 10, 11 through 20 coming at you. So let's recap real quick. We got number 1, the obvious Cooper Kupp. Number 2, Justin Jefferson. Number 3, Jamar Chase. Number 4, Stefon Diggs. Number 5, we're going Devonta Adams. Then you got 6, CeeDee Lamb. 7, Mike Evans. 8, Tyreek Hill. 9 is going to be Deebo Samuel. And then 10 capped off with A.J. Brown. If you have any problems with my list, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you've made it this far and you haven't hit that like button, please, what do I got to do? Do I got to beg you to hit the like button? And make sure you throw some D's on that subscribe button down below and subscribe to the channel and hit that notifications bell so you always stay in the loop for all that fantasy football news. Like I said at the opening of the episode, check out the Rick T platform on Mondays and Fridays to see your boy, yours truly, Dallas Clark, giving out fantasy football advice live. And you can always come and ask fantasy football questions, and I'll be able to answer them there right on the spot for you. So make sure you check out the Rick T platform Monday and Friday, as well as the Rick T platform check-in on Sunday mornings as well. I'm a part of all of those things. So if you like seeing your boy Indo, if you like that fantasy football knowledge, and if you just like having fun with sports, check us out over at the Rick T platform. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to today's wide receiver rankings. I'll see y'all next time. Y'all have a great one. And remember, never be outworked, never be out-hustled, and you'll never be outperformed. I'll see y'all later, man. Holla.